part of our topic, part of why we decided to have this topic is because of what's going on in the market. You know, successful negotiations is very important, especially for what we do on a day-to-day basis. Just a little bit about myself, not too much, because this is really about collaborating today. I see myself more of a facilitator. I want to hear from you. What are you seeing that's working in terms of negotiating? How are you winning those offers, those contracts? The offers, I'm telling you, believe it or not, the offers where you are outbid or you don't win and you follow up and say, why didn't you take my offer? For me personally, that's where I learned the best tips with negotiations. Because oftentimes agents will say, well, this person did this, this, and this. They were a little more willing to do this. And so it just opens up my eyes and my horizons to better negotiation strategies. So I am Tara Houston, a former principal broker with eXp Realty. I was the principal broker for DC and Maryland, and the compliance broker for Virginia for a couple of years. We're kind of still new, so for about 3 years. And then I was able to recruit new brokers for DC and Maryland and move on from my role in compliance broker. So now I serve as an associate broker, a team lead, mentor, trainer, coach, and all that stuff, and I do sales primarily. So that is why I'm here. I've been in the business about 14, going on 15 years, but I primarily started out over 20 years ago in development, developing, flipping, landlording, and those types of things, and that's where I really learned negotiations. Pretty much what we're going to talk about today, none of it is theory, so to speak. It's all just practice, just tips that I've picked up throughout the years. And I started teaching this class actually with my company, with my team, because we saw that it was just a subject of interest, as it always is, as you can tell by this great crowd we have today. But I started teaching that, and then someone else heard about it, and someone else heard about it. So I ended up here at NVAR teaching it. So very excited to be here. So real quick, who wants to be a successful negotiator? That sounds like a reality TV show, right? So you want to be a successful negotiator, right? We all do. And when we talk about success, different people have different definitions of what success means to them. But we're just talking about, in this particular case, what you intended to happen happened. That's as simple as how we're going to define success here. When we're talking about negotiations, we're simply going to define it as you sat down with someone or over the phone or however you collaborated and you came to an agreement. Very simple. It's not, high-level stuff here. But it is very important and it's very high-level in what we do. How many of you have seen the NAR's profile of home buyers and sellers? Have you all seen that document? I recommend that you look at it each year because it is very, very critical for us to understand our industry. NAR, those of us who are members of NAR and pay our dues, we spend millions of dollars each year on market research. It's a National Association of Realtors that actually puts this document out. It's online. You can actually pay for it and get the full 190-some page document, or you can just print off the little small profile, which is what I did online. And what is very significant about this is that 87% of buyers and sellers cited strong negotiations as important in selecting their realtor choice. And so clearly it is something that we're being measured by. So I do encourage you not only to see the statistic on how important negotiation skills are, but I encourage you to look at this document just in general. Because when we're talking negotiations, we have to negotiate sometimes, many times, to actually win listings, don't we? I use that actual document when I go to listing meetings. Listing presentations, listing interviews, whatever you want to call them. But I share this data with the sellers. And I say, these are the things that buyers are looking for. And I know because we've spent millions of dollars of research to find out. So this is another little tool in your toolkit to help you win listings. Because it's very wowing when you look in it and you see what is important to buyers and sellers. And so to share that with your clients or your potential clients just makes you look like really you've done a whole lot of work. And you really have done nothing but pull it offline and put it in your packet. And that's wonderful, right? Doing less with more, right? Having to be able to do less work to get better results. That's a part of negotiating as well. Yes?
What is the name of that document?
Okay, and the question was, I'm going to repeat the question. Remind me if I don't always do that, okay? For the sake of everyone's hearing, plus for online. The question was the name of the document. It is called the NAR Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers. I'm holding now the 2016 version, but they have, they completed each year. So if you go on there now, you should see 2017. Okay? So let's talk about negotiators. How are you going to be a successful negotiator? So you say you want to be a successful negotiator, right? You say you want to be able to win more listings, work with more buyers, win more contracts. Are there other times we have to negotiate outside of those three that I just named?
So the minute you get up in the morning, you have to negotiate with the dog, the baby, the children.
Absolutely. So you're negotiating all the time, right? You're negotiating all the time. Within our particular industry, there are some other times you may have to negotiate. You may have to negotiate with your broker, right? You may have to negotiate with other agents. Say you get a referral, and you feel that you're going to be doing more work than you're being compensated for by the other agent. So being able to navigate the negotiations and use negotiation strategies that work and navigate yourself through that is going to be key and critical to your success. Obviously, we know that about 20% of the realtors, it's always the 80-20 rule, make most of the money in the industry. The other 80%, may not make anything, or the average income is what, $40,000? And that's across the board. We know in this area it may be a little more than that just because of the nature of the housing prices here. But it sounds to me that someone knows how to negotiate a little bit better than others, right? Because that's the name of the game. So to be a successful negotiator, first of all, just before we get into PowerPoint, before we get anywhere, I want you to assess yourself as a leader. Because a successful negotiator really is a leader. You are a leader at that moment that you say, I'm going to be the pilot in this transaction. I'm going to be the pilot in assisting you, my client, with getting into your home of choice. Okay? I'm going to be the pilot in my team, on my team. Okay? So you first of all have to say, am I really a true leader? And there are all different types of perspectives and understandings of what a real leader is, what a real leader does. But at the end of the day, can you make things happen? And can you, bring people to action that allows other people to believe in you? That is what leaders do. You must have a leadership mindset in every transaction. And every transaction is different, right? You may feel like a leader in one. Yes, I won this contract. I, went in and, I negotiated these home inspection items and looked good. And the next week, you feel like you weren't able to accomplish anything. Your clients are screaming at you and yelling at you, and you're thinking, whoa, what did I do wrong? Every transaction is different, but you're always a leader. Okay, so repeat after me. I'm always a leader. One thing leaders understand. This is what you must understand as a leader, as a negotiator, as a successful negotiator who is a leader, is that there will be change. Right? In every situation, there will be change. How are you going to navigate that change? How are you going to negotiate the ups and downs of change? You will hear most of the success stories if you look at people's bios. That's why I'm not really big into bios, for real. I'm just not. Because you only hear the success, don't you? I was able to negotiate successfully, $20 million in sales last year. Wonderful. But tell me how you learned to do that and how you got there. Tell me about the money that was left on the table. I don't want to hear about what you were able to accomplish. I want to hear what you didn't accomplish. Because that's where you're going to learn. Does that make sense? And so I had some ups and I had some downs, but but I stuck through it. That's what leaders do. So there's no straight ride up the hill, okay? No straight ride, regardless of what someone's bio says. And we need to understand that. And we need to learn as much from our failures as we do our successes. So one thing I want you to think about are 3 things you must have. And really, we could end the class right here. Okay? But we won't, because you drove here and you're like, no, we're not. I want a little bit more than this. But 3 things you must have. And the last one is the most important. You just write this down. You're going to get a handout in a minute. But I didn't want you all going all through the handout all early. And I have a quiz in it. And I said, they're going to be going through the handout, doing the quiz before I start. And I'm just, one of those, I used to be a school teacher for real, like a high school English teacher. And I was like, turn your papers over. Wait till I tell you. And I know realtors are not going to listen to those instructions. So that was my way of negotiating. I said, I'll just hold on to them until I'm ready. But 3 things, write these down. IQ, EQ, AQ. To be a successful negotiator, you need all 3. The last one is the most important. So let's talk about IQ. You hear about it you've heard about it since you've been in kindergarten. The IQ, intelligence quotient, how smart are you basically? We can come to class all day, right? We can get education. We can have 5 doctorate degrees. We can get every certification so that our signature line looks like the ABCs 2 or 3 times, listed. We can do all that. But if we don't understand how to use that information to successfully navigate and negotiate through transactions, it's a waste of time. How many of you know agents who have done every certification known to man, but they're not that productive? Anyone know anyone like that?
Of course.
We all do, right? Because it's something about the mindset of a leader and a business owner, which we actually are too, that has to shift. When I was an employee, I could go in and I got paid for time, right? But in our industry, you get paid for results. So when people hire you, they're hiring you many times just based on your IQ. They say, oh, you look pretty smart, you have your license, you have the certification. And of course you tell them, oh, I'm certified to sell military and to work in the military, and I have my diversity certification. I mean, you just tell them there's so many you have. What, the pricing strategy? I'm a pricing strategist, I can price your home. And they're like, oh, this person is wonderful, right? So that's wonderful. They're hiring you partly because of your IQ. But what kicks in once you sign the paperwork? I can teach my 15-year-old son how to fill out a listing agreement. Okay? In fact, he can teach me. How about that? Because they're the ones who know technology rapids. They know how that stuff works. But I can teach anybody. I have a 7-year-old son too. I probably could teach him too, for real, if he really sat long enough to listen. But honestly, it's the EQ that's going to move you closer into being a successful negotiator. Let's talk about the EQ. The EQ is the emotional quotient. You hear this now in industry. Soft skills, emotional intelligence. Do you know how to handle yourself in the ups and downs? What if something doesn't happen? Have you ever been on an airplane and you were calm and cool, right? As long as the staff looked calm and cool, right? If they come out and they're still rolling the tray down the aisle and they say, oh, we're experiencing a little bit of turbulence. What would you like to drink? Can I help you? You're just as cool as if you come. Why? Because even though they have turbulence, they still have the emotional intelligence to keep moving through it. And they realize, we're going to make it through this. We've been here a number of times. Just relax, get something to drink, and we'll be at our destination. But, and I've had this happen, when they say, no, we can't give out snacks right now, and they start putting the tray away, and they say, everyone back to your seats, and you must sit there, their emotional quotient went down, in my opinion. Now, I understand they have to do that, for safety reasons, but something about that makes me trust them a little bit less. Not because it's their fault necessarily, but at that particular point, I'm not sure if I'm going to reach my destination. I'm not sure if I'm going to have success on this plane ride. So what's the point of this story here, or what am I really saying? Can you handle the turbulence as a realtor? Can you really handle it? Anyone can handle when you submit your offer and there are no changes, right? In fact, if you submit your offer and they say we totally accept it, I would almost say you probably overbid on it. Now that's crazy, okay? But I would say it's something you didn't do, so you're probably losing on the end, at the end, okay? And that may not be totally incorrect. I'm just saying that, okay? But you haven't learned anything but, okay, this is the offer. I didn't have to bid. There weren't multiple offers. Maybe it was a shack that was falling down anyway. Did you really win anything? Not necessarily, maybe so. But when you get into that transaction and it's about to blow up, right? There's a situation with the appraisal, or home inspection items can't be corrected, or the financing looks like it's falling through. How do you handle that pressure? Can you handle the pressure of being a successful negotiator? Can you? They should never see you sweat. They mean the clients, the other agents, your broker, the appraiser, the home inspector. They shouldn't see you sweat. You may be freaking out inside. Your kids may need food, and if this deal doesn't happen, you don't know where they're going to get it from. And that's a real, true situation for many of us in our industry. We wake up unemployed every day, right? So that could be the case, but your clients should never know that. You should never get so emotionally involved to the point that you care more about your personal situation than you do the actual client and transaction. Okay? So we don't want to be a frightened leader, do we? We don't want to be like that pilot and that little stewardess who's saying, oh, everybody has to sit down, because that makes everyone uncomfortable. So keep yourself together, okay? Keep it together, you can do it. And we'll talk about how to do that. See, I'm kind of setting you up for some of the points that we'll share, because it's easier said than done. I know, my first transaction, I got so emotional. I was calling my client, and it was like we were friends from way back in the day. I was like, girl, child, let me tell you what she said. Do you believe? And, and to some degree, I guess it may be human, but from a professional negotiator standpoint, it really was not the model that I should have. I should have been able to say, here's the information, this is what she said, this is how we're going to handle it, and let's move on. It needs to be bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. Okay? Now, that goes to our next one, which is the AQ. That is your adaptability quotient. That is how you responded. And I forget what they said the statistic is. Life is such and such amount of what happens and the other amount of how you respond. And it's really, I know, at the end of the day, it's like 90% of how you respond is how each situation affects you. So you must have adaptability in this industry. Someone who's not adaptable will not make it. I saw a presentation the other day that said, if you don't even realize that you really just can't be a referral-only agent to continue to make it in this day of the internet, Zillow, and all the different internet forces that are out there, then you haven't adapted. You haven't shifted. I saw a presentation. That's a presentation I saw. Many of us we mainly get our business from referrals, and that's fine. But I'm just saying, I saw that presentation the other day, and it made me think about where the industry is headed. And if I want to continue to stand out to be one of the premier agents, do I have to shift from being primarily referral to doing some more of the online things? Just something to put out there. How adaptable are you? Because you know what? Successful negotiating is not just negotiating with a client. I met you, you're my client, and we're going to work. We agree to the listing fee and all that stuff. It's also negotiating with the public. Why should you work with me? How am I the expert? So how you present yourself to the public is negotiating as well. Someone once told me, you're always on an interview. You're always on an interview. So you need to always understand that someone is watching you. That's what successful negotiators understand, and successful negotiators do. They keep that in mind. So do you have an adaptability to good and bad? Can you make it? Okay? Do you have expansion joints built into your tolerance? Expansion joints expand as you need them to. In apparatus, they can even be put on belts. We have belts now where you can expand the notches if you eat too much. You eat too much and you're like, whoa, I need another notch. They have these little expansion joints in them. Do you have expansion joints in your tolerance for good and bad? Ask yourself that question. Leaders do, right? Successful leaders have that. Even, from the standpoint of how many brokers are in here? Okay, good. I applaud you for I'm going to say thank you for your service. Because that's really what it is. Sometimes being a broker is a thankless job, a thankless position. And you do serve those who are with you through knowledge, through coaching, through mentoring and all that, through your license, keeping your license activated. So, but even as brokers, perhaps there should be a little understanding of how things may be changing. Are things changing, in the market? Are things changing and shifting the way we need to train our agents so that they can be the best agents that they can be? We need to keep that in mind as well. It can't, if you can't take the ups and downs, you can't handle bad news, get out. How do you handle bad news? How do you handle it? You give clear, concise, accurate messaging. That's it. Bad news is very hard. It's easy to say, we won the bid. It appraised. We're clear to close. There's no one who probably has a hard time calling and giving that information. But we don't have a clear to close because it did not appraise. Here's the information. The home inspector said that the roof is caving in. Or whatever. Whatever you need to share. You need to give clear, concise, accurate messaging. When people know that you're going to give a clear, concise message, then they are able to trust you. Okay? So clear, concise messaging. Anyone other than me been behind on a bill before? Maybe I'm the only one in here. But it's not working. Oh, it is working. Okay. So any of you been behind on a bill or something like that? You call. I don't have the funds. I'll have it next year. I'm sorry. At least they know where you stand, right? Same thing with negotiating contracts and talking to sellers and, navigating that process. So be very clear, give clear expectations, and if you give clear messaging, you set clear expectations, there's no room for disappointment. You can say, hey, I'm going to try this. However, yes, sir.
Yeah, I think also this is a great learning opportunity. Why didn't we get the contract? So you can talk about what kind of tactics could we use to maybe still win this back, or if not, what do we do next time going forward? So it's a learning opportunity, and that way it doesn't seem like that you're not giving bad news, you're giving information for the next time.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, and I'm glad that you shared that, because it goes back to we learn more really from our failures than we do our successes. We're excited about our successes, but don't we learn more when we don't win that contract? And our client learns more. Case in point, I was working with a client, and he flew here from Dallas, and we went out, and he found all these houses he liked, and we wrote on one right away, and we didn't win. It was like a multiple offer situation, and we didn't win, and he, he was just devastated that he didn't win. He loved the house or whatever, but he understood that you're putting in an offer, you don't win. But I was able to call the agent and say, hey, because it was in a different market that I don't always work in that much. So sometimes navigating a new market can be interesting too. So I called the agent and I said, hey, what's the deal here? I appreciate you getting back to me. Can you just share with me, what would have made our contract stronger? And she was able to share, 2 or 3 pieces of information, which I then, like you said, to your point, shared with him. The next situation, next act, next scene, we found a house, he fell in love with it, multiple offers. He said, hey, let's use the strategy from before. And we were able to be the highest bidder, or the best bidder. I don't even know if we were the highest, but we were the best one, and we won the contract out of 5 other contracts. But we used the information that we learned before. And we were able to share with him very clear messaging. You didn't win this contract because X, Y, and Z. The next time, maybe we'll try this, and let's move on. And he closed on his house last week. So everybody's happy. Okay? So very good. Can you handle the success in negotiations? Before I give you the handouts. Can you handle that? Ask yourself that. The reason why I'm saying that is because you're going to be successful. When you walk out of here today, you already, we ended right now, just based on the conversation we've had, you already know you need to be more adaptable. You need to be more open to change. You already know that. That is going to set you ahead of so many agents already. Trust me. I deal with it and I see it. So, you're going to be ahead. But can you handle the change? Can you handle the success? Do you have a structure in place to help when you get more business? See, another thing with negotiating is you get back to people. You respond. You have systems in place. You have assistants who can help you. You have forms, that are duplicable and easily, shared from one person to the next. Do you have a structure in place to handle successful negotiations? Ask yourself that. What if I really did get to the point where I had 5 closings a week? And some of you do, probably. I know. I can look in this room and see we have success. Would it raise it if you had 10 closings a week? Do you really have the success? Do you really have a system in place to even handle it? Who was the movie said, can you handle the truth? Right? Can you handle the success? Ask yourself that. Sometimes we're asking for more than we can really handle. And maybe that's why we don't have it. So we need to keep that in mind. So you must plan for that weight of winning. There's a weight of winning. There's a weight of that. Built-in flexibility, very important. Very important. Okay? So that's our first little segment on leadership. You feel you're successful leaders? Yes?
Yes.
You want to be?
Yes.
You're going to be? So just take one and pass it back. This is our little seminar. If you would take one and pass it back. Oh, I think Renee and Matt are going to help pass it out. Thank you so much. But before we go any further, what hiccups do you have? Something attracted you to this class. What do you want to hear about? Because I want to make sure we talk about what you want to talk about in this class.
Thank you.
Anybody? I know that's being had. Yes.
I think you hit a lot, but I'm struggling with being assertive.
Okay.
I'm dealing with international clients, and I find myself cowering down.
Okay, so this gentleman said he wants to hear, and let's discuss about how we can be more assertive. You work with an international clientele, and you find that you have to give in a lot, meaning on your commissions, fees.
More like cultural. I feel like I don't know how to respect them, or am I offending them because of their culture?
Yeah, one thing you can do for that, and it's obviously this is a book, but what is it? Kiss, bow, and shake hands. It's a very good book to learn how to navigate cultural differences and to navigate what's important and why. Okay, so that's one thing you can do. Yes. Kiss, bow, and shake hands. I forget who it's by.
Selling bookstore.
Okay, there you go. Kiss, bow, and shake hands. It takes you through the globe on cultures, and it's specific to our industry. So it's a very good book just to be familiar with. It is theoretical, obviously, and we know sometimes theory is not always true life. It's not always practical, but it's a very good book. Very good practical information on how to navigate and work with different clients. As I work with some international clients as well. And one of the things I do is sometimes just ask, what really are you looking for and why is this important to you? And as I would any client. I would ask any client that, even if I grew up next door to them. But sometimes just asking that will give you some key information. because I work with an influx of clients from Spain. And when I worked with the first client, I realized that he had some interest in a home that, you know, would not appeal to your usual buyer here. And so I had to open my mind to say, okay, let me shift and put myself in his position. Okay, but I was only able to do that once I understood what he wanted. Another thing I've asked my international clients to do is many of them are selling homes where they live. I say, send me the listing. Do you like your home? Can you send me the listing? And normally I actually do it because I have a lot of agents all over the world, so I say I can send it to them and, you know, help you get it sold. But I also look at it to kind of see what they like in homes, how they like to live, and so forth. So it depends on, you know, how much bang you're going to get for your buck for doing, you know, those extra steps. But I found it to be worthwhile, and I'm having more success with this group of clients who are from Spain that I'm working with. Okay? What else do you want to discuss? Yes?
I think it's important to know who the real decision maker is. Now, online we can't do that, but so you have to do it face to face. But in my business, that's one of the first things you need to know: who is the real decision maker, who you should be talking to.
That is so true. She owns a commercial brokerage over in Tyson's, right? So she works with a lot of commercial clients. However, that is true in every situation. I had clients who were moving here from Pakistan, okay? And their parents were giving them a lot of money for this house, for the house. So the first couple times I took them out, they said, oh, this is nice, but our parents have to see it or whatever. So I was like, okay, great. I understand. I've worked with newlyweds and, you know, people like that. She was moving here, a physician. Her husband was an engineer, and they were doing very well, but they still wanted to allow their parents. And so I said, that's wonderful. But it was so interesting. When their parents came, both sets of parents, uncles, brothers and sisters. There was about 30 of us going to look at homes. And it was okay. It was, you know, I can adapt. I'm adaptable. And that part wasn't it. But I listened to the conversation. And I listened to who was making the final decisions. And so I finally said, after, you know, the dust had cleared and everyone had gone back to their hotels or wherever they were staying, and they said, well, we want to see these. I said, bring your mom with you. Because it was the mothers that had the power. The two mothers. The husband and the wife. The husband's mother and the wife's mother. I said, bring your mothers with you. Because, you know, they're going to, you know, question, you know. And it worked out perfectly. So it goes back to your point. Find out who's that key decision maker. And appeal to that person. Now, you have to, within, you know, our contracts, we're under contract with the buyer. We're under contract with the seller. So from a technical and a legal standpoint, we aren't supposed to be sharing personal information with them, even if it is the mom and you know that they trust the person, whatever. However, you have the power of suggestion. Why don't you share this with your mother and see what she thinks? Let them share, okay? But you certainly find out, I'm glad you said that, who that key decision maker is. And it'll help you be a better negotiator, because you're really not negotiating with the person on the sheet of paper. You're negotiating with that other influence. Question? What other questions do you have or comments? Yes?
I think the first person was really asking, how do you negotiate with your clients to get a decent commission? Wasn't that really what you're saying? And sometimes in some cultures, you know, they expect you to give them discounts. And so one of the things you want to think about, well, how do I start that conversation in such a way that here's what my normal commission is, but for you, I can make a special, and that you can come out ahead oftentimes by just taking charge and sticking up for yourself, but being willing to give something so that it's win-win.
And that's the nature of negotiating anyway, creating a win-win between both parties. You want to come.
Yeah, I do want to say comment. I guess my question is like, you know how you say how you eat an elephant? So like these clients look to me like a big elephant, and how do I approach them to get that trust and connection?
So they don't trust you.
Well, me, it's more on me, my perception, not probably them, but I feel, oh, you know, this is a huge
Are
elephant.
you a little intimidated by them?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so first and foremost, you need to make sure that you are armed with as much information about your value as you possibly can be. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
You need to, first of all, understand who you are. You need to understand that you're worth every dime that someone is going to pay you and that you are saying you must be paid. That's the first rule to real estate anyway. Understand that you are worth it because you have gone to get your license, you come to CE classes, you have sold other homes, you're very active in your community, whatever the reasons are. Okay? But if you don't value yourself, there is in no way you're going to be able to stand up against someone who doesn't value you either. Does that make sense? So you need to look at yourself. And why should someone hire you? No, seriously, I'm asking, why should someone hire you?
You want me to give you a response?
Why should someone hire you? If I need you to sell my house, why on earth would I hire you? I see 60 other realtors in here. Why hire you?
Because I think I will be honest to do what you asked me to do and follow to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowledge and service.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you should walk in that. Be free.
yeah.
To know that you have the knowledge, you have the expertise, you do this on a day-to-day basis. One thing I refuse to do is work with someone who doesn't trust me. You don't trust me, you can hit the road. And the reason why is because once you don't trust me, I've lost you anyway.
That's correct.
I've lost you anyway. There's anything that goes wrong, you don't trust me anyway. Then I don't have the time to deal with that. You also, when you can see that they don't trust you, you open yourself up for more legal liabilities as well. Because they're questioning everything you're doing. They are, already probably on edge looking to see. And the minute you come down on your price, whatever it is, strictly because they forced you to, they already know they have you.
Tied to the outcome.
Exactly. It should be tied to the outcome. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yes.
Once you're tied to the outcome, you can't negotiate.
Yep. There you go. So you can have tiers. Like I've had a tiered system before. And this is all, it just depends. But a tiered system can be, this is what I charge because, I'm providing this service, I do this, I have brokers opens, I stage the property, whatever. Okay, whatever your array of services are or is. So you have that, but then you say, but if for some reason it's not sold in 60 days or whatever, then you can have a tier system. Or you can say, for those who work in dual agency or whatever, if, I bring the other client, then there's a discount or something like that. I always like to have some control over what I'm being paid. And have something just to show them, no, I'm not a fool. Some of that is not even about you caring about the commission as much as you caring about how you're perceived. Because if you keep, coming off your price just because you're intimidated by them, everyone who they refer you to will expect the same thing. And you fall into that reputation of, oh, he'll do it. And who's that hurting? You, your family, and your business and so forth. So, to your point, I understand, I get it, but you need to understand that you are worth every dime you're being paid. I had someone ask me one time on a builder, we were going to meet with the builder, and they said, well, this other realtor said they would give me some of their commission if I, took them with me to the builder. Will you do that? I said no. And that was the end of the conversation. And we kept on going. I didn't even explain. I said no. Okay, so when the builder walks in, we just went on like it was, and I closed the house. You see what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, they could have said, well, why, or whatever. If they had said that, I would say, because I do this on a day-to-day basis, and I know what my skill sets are worth. And I always tell people, if you can get Walmart, you can get Nordstrom service for Walmart, right? You are crazy if you don't. I say, you're the crazy one. If you can find someone to do all I'm going to do, and they're going to let you get it for that, well, then you are crazy. Tell me where they are. I may let them list my house. Right? That's what, you see what I'm saying? It's more so helping them to understand what you're worth and why you believe that you're the best in the business. I'm going to be honest. I've had people, I didn't win every listing. I've lost a lot of listings because people said, well, this person could do it, and they're doing the same thing, and they're giving me this deal, and blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, that's fine. You know, I can't win everything, and you won't win everything. But at the same time, we don't want to have this little needy, I need this commission. And sometimes we do. We are in a situation, we wake up unemployed every day. Right? Which is the thing I love about our industry. I don't like being employed, but so it's a good thing. But we wake up unemployed every day, so we need something to pay the bills. So we get it. That's where that adaptability quotient comes in and that emotional intelligence comes in. Okay? Okay, so real quick, let's go through the presentation. Wow, we've been here 45 minutes and we're just getting to the presentation. So basically, you all know you need to be a power negotiator, not to the point where you assert your power, I'm the power negotiator, but where you know inside, and I'm glad this gentleman brought that up, because that is so critical. You have to believe in yourself. And to your own self be true. If there's an area that you are not an expert in, why on earth would you venture into it without help? Okay? There's just no way I would go on a listing presentation with a family that only speaks French. They only speak French. They only. And I don't speak a lick of French. I just wouldn't do that. I would take someone with me who speaks French, or I would refer to someone who speaks French. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's the same thing. If I'm venturing into an area that I don't know, I don't want to just jump out there without any tutoring. I don't want to jump out there with any coaching and mentoring. So you need to your own self, be true. And if you need help, ask for help. Sometimes we have to give a little to get a little. You may bring in another agent and say, hey, I'll give you 20%. Can you show me this? Can you show me how to do this? Can you walk me through this deal? I've never done luxury before. I've never done, a co-op before. Whatever. It could be your first deal. I don't know. But whatever it is, I've never sold land before. Bring your experts in. It makes you appear actually more powerful when you ask for help. I have a property I'm about to list, and it's a really unique property. Just unique, one of those, it was moved from one side of the railroad track to the other. It's an antebellum type home. It's just unique. There's no way to comp it. I said I'm going to bring my resident appraiser in. You always got to have a resident appraiser, a resident lender, a resident title company. And that just sounds professional. It's just nobody but someone who you call, right? But I say, oh yeah, this is my resident appraiser. He's on my team and he helps me, in unique situations. Or I may bring in, my pricing strategy advisor to look at it or whatever. But I'm not going to go and try to come up with a price for that property. I'm not an expert in antebellum homes. So I would be setting myself up for failure. And there are no comps. You all know there's no comps for that type of thing. There are, but you have to go outside of the area to get them. Okay? So we talked about some of these. We talked about this. It's a very spoiled society now. Very spoiled. I want it now. I want it how I want it. And I wanted it yesterday, and you weren't there, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Right? Understand that, but still to your own self be true, and understand you lead the show. Does that make sense? You lead it, and don't let their emotion suck you in. Because overly emotional people make me nervous. And I make them nervous. Because the more emotional you get, the less emotional I get. Because I don't know if you're going to blow. So we were talking, someone and I were working on a project, and she was like, but you don't understand, this is so important. You are making me so nervous. I said, and you are making me so nervous. So can you just calm down? Once we calm down, we can talk. But I can't deal with, I'll have to hang up on people. Not in a slam the phone way, but I always give you warning. I know you're upset as they're screaming. I know you're upset. This is not what you wanted to hear. I'm going to hang up right now, and let's talk about it in the morning. Or let's talk about it later this afternoon. Or why don't you get something to eat, and then let's talk about it. Whatever. But I'm not going to try to deal with and collaborate and negotiate with someone who is just not reasonable. You don't get anywhere. And we don't want to be the unreasonable person either. Sometimes it can be us, right? So we negotiate with everyone in this industry, and it's necessary. All right, so in the back of your handout, there's a little quiz. And for those of you via the live stream, you won't see that, so we'll go over the questions at the end. So take 5 minutes. This is not the PSI. So do not worry about every single one. Just answer it and move on. So take 5 minutes. A few more folks still writing, so I promised them 5, so I don't want to start before you're done. Okay, so let's talk about the best way to handle an emotional client during a negotiation is. What did you all say? Okay, good. Speak calmly. I'm saying it for the sake of those watching live. Speak calmly to the client and nod in agreement until the client regains control. Nod in agreement. That's kind of funny, right? Even though they're saying something crazy, you just want to let them know that you hear them. Yes.
What if you're on the phone and they can see you nodding agreement?
If you're on the phone, then you just listen to them. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just let them get it out.
Keep nodding twice as much.
Let them get it out. Listen to them. What you don't want to do is like double dutch. Anyone ever double dutch? You're just trying to get your argument in. No, you don't have to try to get your argument in. In the end, you're going to win anyway because you're the successful negotiator. So you just let them vent. Okay? Yes?
Uh-huh.
Yep?
Uh-huh.
Every now and then say something, because I've heard people screaming at me and I'm on the phone, I'm not saying anything. They say, are you listening? Yeah, I'm listening. Keep yelling. But yeah, so just be calm. It's no need for you to get into what they're getting into. Keep in mind this, and also you want to understand the human side of this. For them, this is their only transaction probably. Okay? For you, it may be one of many that you have going on. And we know you don't really have time to deal with the drama. Let's just get through it. But they don't know that. And you want them each to feel like they're the only person that matters at that moment. That's how clients keep coming back. So listening to them. All right, number 2. According to psychology, this is if you had your psychology degree, I guess. This is a tough one if you don't know it. According to psychologist Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the highest need of individuals is good, self-actualization. Excellent. That is, self-actualization is basically the need to reach your maximum potential. So I just need to reach my highest potential. That's why housing is so important to all people. For many people, and that's why I'm a real stickler for fair housing, and I was so excited about the fair housing anniversary celebration, because for so many people, the home that they purchase is the most significant purchase they'll ever make in their lifetime. It's also a symbol to them that they have arrived in this society. They want to live where they want to live. What do people do? They have these housewarming parties and invite everyone and the mayor to see it, right? Because they're proud of what they've accomplished. So we have to go into each transaction understanding that. Likewise, if they're selling it, it's normally to move on to accomplish something else better in life, right? So even if they're selling it, they want to maximize the value they can get in as less time as possible, right? So self-actualization is very important for us to understand as realtors. Number 3, in presenting a counter offer to buyers, you should. You said all the above, okay? So all the above is good, but the number 1 thing first would be what?
Focus.
Yeah, focus. So you go in focusing on points of agreement between the parties. When you're presenting it, you know what? This is wonderful. I don't care if they just accepted the termite inspection. Whatever they agreed on, you start there. We agreed that the sellers are going to pay for the termite inspection. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, find some commonality that you can say, this is wonderful. Now, they would like us to settle, 60 days earlier, whatever. Okay? So go into the positives first and then focus on, where we need to work. But this is what we're going to have to do. We've got to figure out, they're only willing to give you $10,000 in closing. I know you really need 13. So what can we do to make that happen? What can we propose or something like that? Likewise, when you're presenting it to your buyers, but when you're countering to the buyer's agent, you can go in with that same approach. So you get the counter back from the sellers, you go to your buyers. But say you are the seller agent, the listing agent. When you go to that buyer agent, you can start off the same way. Hey, I would love to get something done with you, would love to work with you. This is, looking good. My sellers agreed to whatever, they agreed to this, and that looks great. However, is it something that we can do with the closing costs, it really, at the top of their budget here, and that's just really a bit more than they were willing to pay or trying to pay. So is there something we can do? Do you think you could go to your buyer and you all could work that a little differently? Okay? So you see how easy that is to present to someone and ask questions? And sometimes they're going to ask you, well, how much are they willing to pay? Right? Anyone ever received that question before or heard that? How much can they pay? How close? And then you have to decide at that particular point, if you know your client, you have to kind of know that information and know if you're able to divulge it. You could also say, well, what's the least amount they're willing to take? Lead with a question. He who answers the question first loses. That's what a negotiator once told me. So don't throw out the first number if at all possible in negotiations. And you throw it out when you're the buyer, right? We know that. But when it comes to negotiations, if they say, we want $15,000, they say, well, we can't pay $15,000, what will you accept? Say, how close to $15,000 can you get? Put it back on them. That make sense? How close to $15,000 can you get? Then it doesn't always work. Sometimes I'll say, well, you just have to throw out a number and we'll see. So then in that regard, I would say, throw out $14,000. Even if you know they may only need $12,000. Does that make sense? Just see what they're willing to do. Okay? It's all the psychology behind it. And it's not playing games necessarily. That's not it. But who do you work for? Your client. And you're supposed to get the best deal for them. And they wouldn't have asked for $15,000 if they didn't think, that was reasonable to ask for. So you want to get as close to that as possible. And then sometimes they can use it to buy down their rate and, different things like that. So you want to always keep your client's interest at hand. That's what you want to do. All right, number 4. If a negotiation seems to be hitting an impasse or deadlock, that's what that is, you could do what?
All of the above.
It is all the above. You can reiterate. So any of these strategies, whichever ones you think would work at that point, reiterate the areas of the agreement like we just talked about. Break the area of disagreement into components. We can't give you all the closing costs, but we can give you, that's where you're breaking into components. Remind the parties what they have to lose if the deal is not consummated. Now I would do that at the end. You know what I mean? You don't want to say, hey, if you don't do this, you're not going to get, you know what I mean? That makes you seem hostile.
It's a negative.
Yeah, and it's too negative. So you can remind them, but you want to even do that delicately. You can do that by saying, look, you share with me that they really want to move on. They found their home choice. We just need to get this one detail defined, and they'll be on their way. We'll be in our home, and we'll have a great agreement here. Something along those lines. You don't want to say, you're going to miss out. Yes.
Well, you said all parties, so that includes the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking to the other side's agent,
Mm-hmm.
then you say, well, everybody's going to lose if this falls apart. Aren't there some ways that we can maybe hold this back together?
That's true. That's good. That's another approach to it. We all have something to lose here. Which is what, for the sake of those watching live who didn't hear his comment, we all have something to lose. We want this to work. Is there something we can do? Good. All right.
What was the best answer?
It was really all the above were good for a deadlock because it depends on the situation. So I had that all of them were. Yeah. And this is all subjective too, because you know what? If you get in a situation, you're not going to go to your sheet saying, oh, what did we learn in our speak calmly? No. You just have to, it just kind of has to flow out of you. But these are just some scenarios. The best way to overcome buyer's objections is to
Ask why. Clarify the source.
clarify the true source of the objection. You can always say why, if they're objecting to something, why? Because sometimes we negotiate with our buyers. You've shown them 50 homes, and you didn't see anything you liked. Are you kidding? Why? What are you looking for? It's okay to ask that question. Same thing with buyers, when you work with the buyer's agent. Why did they decide to walk away? Because we wouldn't pay an extra $1,000. Sometimes I've seen it happen where agents come together and say, let's just make it work. Be very careful with that though, because I've had it backfire for some of my agents who did something like that and they were accused of working in cahoots with the other party. You know, because sometimes they just don't want you giving anything out of what, because they're really paying you, you know, especially if they're the listing agents. If you're the listing agent, they feel that you're working in cahoots. Why would you give them anything or something like that? So just, you know, it just depends on the situation, you know, because you want to be above board with all that.
Well, it depends also how you present it.
Mm.
What's your words?
Mhm.
You know, you don't say, hey, can we, you and I make it work? If you say, let's make it for the seller, work for the seller and the buyer.
Mhm.
You know, it's a
That's
win-win
good.
situation.
Mhm. Yes, so to his point was, it's all in the verbiage, the semantics that you use. Not how can we make it work, that sounds like it's about our commissions, really. But how can we make this work for our clients? So that's good, thank you. When presenting an offer, you should
Avoid considering any negatives.
avoid considering any negatives. Yes, that's one way of looking at it. I had, like I said, this is subjective, so I had summarized the main points. That's what I had. Summarize the main points of the offer before presenting every other part, just because they really want to see at this point how much are you offering and how many closing costs you expect me to pay normally. Okay? Now we know big time negotiations is like watching a football game or basketball game. The most important aspect of any game is what?
Score.
So, what did you say? Someone said the score. What did you say?
Winning.
Winning? That's the end result we want, right?
Touchdown.
Is it the quarterback? Is it the point guard with the basketball? Is it the fouls that you have?
The
No.
team.
Is it the team? The most important aspect, you watch, how many of you watch sports? You watch sports? Of any sport, is the clock.
Uh-huh.
Because it's how much you can do
Uh-huh.
before the clock hits 0, 0, 0 in the 4 quarters or whatever many quarters you have, right? Or if you have halves or whatever. So that's the most important thing. In negotiating, it's the same thing. That clock, those timelines, we only have a certain amount of time to get this done. And everything we're doing is working towards meeting that deadline, meeting that clock. It's very, very important that we understand the significance of the clock in everything. When we present offers, when we're countering, when we're looking at our client's best position, the clock is going to be very important. I'm not sure in our industry if it's the most important, like it is in sports, but it is up there on the list. Okay, the best way to handle multiple offers is, what do you all do? This was highly subjective. What do you all do?
Well, it kind of depends what you've said to the buyers up front. So if you're doing the weekend thing where you've already clarified with the seller that we're going to review offers Monday night, then that's the message that's given back to everybody, and we stick with that message. I mean, I just went through this recently, and we don't waver from that message. That is what we're going to do, and on Monday night, that's what we do.
Okay.
Everybody's on board.
So be true.
Yes.
It goes back to give clear, concise expectations. Tell them when you're presenting. Okay? You had something to say?
Well, to help you sort through, if you got multiple offers, as you come back to everybody is, we want highest and best by a certain date.
Highest and best. That's good. With multiple offers by a certain date. Give them a deadline. Good. Okay? So, you know, like I said, that one is highly subjective. I think I said consider offers in the order that they're received and registered, but that may not always work. Because if you're having a big open house, or if, you know, you want to see, as long as what you've communicated is what you're doing, then normally you should be fine.
And I think that's what I think in a normal market, or when maybe the house has been on the market for a few weeks or something, then you
Right.
do them as they are received, right?
Yeah, but in this market we're in, yes.
I also think that it depends. It's based on your client's instructions, right? So So realistically, you work for the client, so you talk to them beforehand and say, what do you want to do if we receive multiple offers? We're putting it on the market, it's a hot market. We might get multiple offers in the first weekend. What do you want to do?
Good.
How do you want to present it? And then that's what you.
Good, so he said communicating with the clients and finding out how they want offers presented. And if they want them right away, or if they want you to hold them till the open house is over or something like that. Good, yes.
I also noticed that when I tell a buyer's agent that we're in a multiple offer scenario, some of them get discouraged from sending their offers in.
So he said when he tells people he's in a multiple offer situation, some buyer agents get discouraged.
But
Why is
It's
that?
not their decision.
Well, it's not their decision, but we have the power of suggestion. So I get what you're saying. Yes.
It's not even necessarily the buyer's agent, it's the buyers. All right, we don't want to be in a situation where we're overbidding. We don't want to be in a situation, and so if you tell me you have 3 offers, it's like, all right, well, let's look at a different house that might not have any offers and see if we can negotiate with them better.
Yeah, and as she said, it's not really our decision as agents, but we do so, since we have such a strong power of suggestion, you may go to something like what this gentleman said, where you say, well, let's look at some other, see if there's anything else you're interested in if you don't feel like getting it. Some clients don't have the tolerance that we have for bidding and multiple offers and coming back and try to win based on home inspection, take out appraisal. They don't have the tolerance that we have, so we have to manage that for them. Yes?
I was also going to say, some people don't want to feel rushed.
Yep. Some people don't want to feel rushed, is what she said. Right? Okay? Because that clock is always, yes.
And then you have to be careful because you make a decision like that and that's not what they want.
Oh, okay.
And then they come back and go, I don't want to fix it.
Okay. Because they feel like they were coerced.
They feel like you're rushing them.
Okay, so her point was, and very well taken too, that you want to be careful coercing them to move. Let's move quick. It's their decision.
And especially in waiving a home inspection. So careful.
Be very careful with waiving a home inspection, she said. Waiving appraisal contingencies. I had someone do that once. They were in a multiple offer situation. They were devastated when they lost the home. So the next time they were going to up them one and they weren't going to have an appraisal inspection against my suggestion. Appraisal contingency. Against my advice. So they were like, we're waiving it. And they said, oh, we're pretty sure it will appraise or whatever. Yeah, the blessing in it was, this was a family that had great means, but it did not appraise. And they had to come to the table with the money. But they had means. Even though I didn't advise it, I knew at the end of the day they could do it, so we moved forward. Does that make sense? So you have to know your client too. If you know absolutely there's no way they would be able to do that, then I would strongly discourage it and just say, I can't in good conscience advise you to do that because we do not have a crystal ball to know what the home will appraise for. Okay, so real quick, let's get through the rest of our PowerPoint. The last question was a repeat. That's why I'm not going to go for that one. Okay, so just some basic principles. Wow, it's already 10:40. Can you believe it? We're back on the PowerPoint now. I'm not sure which side it is. I didn't number them. It's the right side, okay? After time for a quiz, it's like 2 pages back. But you all have this. You can look up here too. But these are just some basic principles. We're actually almost done because you all stole my thunder with all your questions and comments. So, woohoo! I'm glad. Leave out I and you, if at all possible. You know, you don't want to make it seem like it's about us versus them type thing. So if at all possible, you know, speak from a collaborative approach. We would like, we're suggesting, can we, do something to work this out for our clients, something like that. Understand the full picture, meaning the full picture may be your client's full picture, maybe the full picture of the seller or the other party. So as much as you can get from the other agent, you want to get it. Now, many agents are reticent to share any information, but I'm finding in this world of, lots of collaborating and multiple offers and high inventory, that many agents are willing to share information because they feel that it's not going to backfire against them. So I'm able to call agents and get lots of great information that I can then share with my clients. And I'm not going to say anyone's violating any code of ethics or anything, but they're sharing good information. You know, they really want to move to Florida. They lived here for 20 years. You know, that information is very important for you to understand as a buyer's agent. Because perhaps there's some emotional attachment to it. Perhaps they have room for negotiations, too. Perhaps, I mean, you don't know if they refinanced or not, or got an equity line of credit or something, but you can make a few little assumptions based on that information. Negotiate from where you actually are. What is meant by that is be true and honest and provide accurate information. You do not want to make it sound like your clients can pay $500,000 for a home when you know they're only approved for $475,000. So you have to negotiate there. And if the person's not willing to come down to $475,000, then they have to walk and find another home. Because you cannot negotiate from somewhere that doesn't exist. Focus on the final destination, which is success. When you're talking to your client, you're saying, this is great. You have your home. I had this happen. It was a great negotiation, but boy, once we got out of the contract, the other person turned into Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They wouldn't respond. They just became very difficult to deal with. And the last thing that broke the camel's back was they had a post-occupancy agreement, which I don't normally like my clients to do, but in this case, he wanted the house and the person needed the house, so she did. So she had it for like 45 days, and he was okay because his job was paying for like a hotel. He said, well, I'll take my kids to, my wife and kids to Spain for that 45 days. I'll live in the hotel as I start my new job, and, you know, it'll be fine. He said, I really don't want this. I would love to just be able to move into my home, family and stuff. He said, it's okay, but they sent it over saying that they're moving out early. That the seller is moving out early. And so we had the one check where they pay him back. Needless to say, he wasn't happy. He said, well, this is just not working in my favor. I'm renting an apartment in Madrid. I said, I'm sorry. I mean, what do you say? You know, I said, but you did understand this. You always take them back to what they agreed on. Say, go, let's look at the post-occupancy. You agreed to this, and you said that you were okay with it, and now this is just one of those situations that we can't change. We have to honor it. And he said, oh, I just don't feel like I've won anything. I said, you beat out multiple offers. You have the home of your dreams here. I said, you have a home he was very excited about his school district. I said, you have the school district that you wanted. I said, you still won. I didn't really know if he did or not, but I wanted him to understand. I hope he's not watching the streaming live. Probably not. But I said, but honestly and truly, I wouldn't say something if I didn't honestly believe it. I think he got a good deal, and that was just something he has to deal with. He said, I rented an apartment in Virginia. I said, I'm sorry. Always look to counter. Now, what's the point of that? Does it mean you have to always counter? No. But you should be looking to see how you can get the best deal for your client. So what's in there that you need to counter? Just assume that there's something in there that's not working in favor of your client. So that means study the contract. Know the contract. Go to these contract classes. When the contract changes in July and Matt's having classes, you should all be here. You need to know the contract. If you do not know the contract, there's no way you can be the best negotiator. It goes back to our IQ. Remember our IQ, EQ, and AQ? IQ is knowing the contract. Know it. I have people that say stuff to me that's just the most crazy thing I've ever heard. Like I had one person say, the seller needs to fix something. It was something on like a VA home inspection. I know in theory you do have to fix stuff, but it was a big mess. And so what happened was, he said the seller has to fix it. And my seller was willing to walk away at this point. I said, no, they don't. They know that you can walk away. So they don't have to do anything. That's just the way it works. I said, read the contract. Contract says they're supposed to do it. If not, they're in default and buyer can walk. I said, read the contract. So it's those types of things where we understand the contract and understand what it means and how to use it to represent our clients. Know the difference between position and interest. That is your position as a leader through the transaction, and your interest, you're representing whose interest? The client's, not your own. But you're still a leader in it all. So you have to lead for their interest. Okay, 7 deadly sins. Wow. This is pretty bad. Remember the movie 7? Suppose that happened in the realtor community. It'd be really bad, right? So 7 deadly sins: talking too much with no active listening, not understanding that if you have any leverage, not understanding that. What leverage do I really have? And if you don't have any, then at least you have that understanding. But do I have any leverage in this? Is there anything that I have the upper hand on? Know it and use it and rely on it later. Not knowing your client's acceptable outcome. Is it the best outcome? Not necessarily. Is it the end all and be all? Not necessarily. But are they okay with it? You need to know at the end of the day that they're okay with it. One thing I always ask at the end of every signing, with builder or if I write it or whatever, I say, is this what you want to do? It's just it's like a button, the easy button that I push as soon as we're done. So, is this what you want to do? Because I need to hear them say yes. And if I hear any hesitation, that's where I start probing and saying, okay, what's the issue? Well, I'm not so sure about the school system. Or, well, I don't know if I can deal with the basement being unfinished. Well, because it's going to make your life a nightmare. If they win the offer and they're stuck in it, and it really wasn't what they really wanted. So until they can answer that question, yes, I suggest not moving on. If they can't just say, oh yes, this is what I want to do. Even if they say, well, I think I'm paying too much, but if the appraisal, because a lot of them will say, well, if it appraises, I'm okay. Right? You've heard that before? And sometimes they'll say, I think I'm paying too much, but I really like it. And I guess I have the appraisal contingency. And I see, yeah, you do. And they say, okay, well, let's go ahead and send it. Another one of the sins is thinking it's all about money. It's not all about money. It's all about relationship. And reputation. Your reputation is more valuable than that one deal. Right? What does Proverbs say? A good name is more valued than rubies and riches. That is a very, very wise statement and understanding. Your good name can take you places where your winning one particular deal won't. So you want to preserve your name and your character. Okay? Revealing motivation. Sometimes revealing the motivation a little too early. Well, they love it. It's the only one in the school district that they found that they like. Maybe too much information. Because they're not going to give you anything. They know you really want it. Okay? So you don't want to do that. Not being prepared. Before you go into battle, right? And negotiating is somewhat a soft battle. You need to be prepared. You need to do your homework. You need to know your leverage. You need to know all these other things we've been talking about. Be prepared. Be prepared for a counter. And I have that conversation with my clients up front. They're probably going to counter. So let's suggest this so they can counter and show us where they really rather be. Okay? Not keeping your ego out of the deal is a deadly sin. I'm just going to win for the sake of winning because I don't like to lose is a very bad, bad attitude to have. At the end of the day, humble yourself, be realistic, be calm, and understand who you're really serving is your client. Okay? So you want to do that. Okay? Next to last, you all have this, 5 strategies for better negotiations. Just be professional at all times. Sometimes just appearing to look the part is important. Right? Remember I said you're always on an interview? Look the part. I was at a store and I was appalled. I'm going to tell you why. I was buying, some clothes or whatever, and the lady said, oh, this is gorgeous. The person who was helping me, she said, this is absolutely gorgeous. You gonna wear this to work or whatever? And I don't know, I guess I said yes or whatever. And she was like, so where do you work? I said, oh, I'm a realtor. She said, now, this is not a compliment. I think she meant it to me, but I was appalled. She said, oh, you're way too professional to be a realtor. She said, you look like you should be in the boardroom or somewhere. Now, I was not flattered by that comment, okay? Because somewhere along the line, that's how people see us. They don't see us as professionals. And it's not the people in this room, but we as an industry have got to come up. We've got to do better. Because that's how people see us, is that we're not professionals. We're just all out for money. And we, may show up to a showing with holy jeans or whatever. Now, don't get me wrong. I know for a fact, because I know some of the people who are like the 30 for 30, and I've seen them in action, and I know how they dress. But it works for them, but it doesn't work for most people. Does that make sense? And I'm not saying they're not professional. That's not what I meant either. But sometimes if you're working for a certain clientele, and you serve maybe all your friends who went to University of Maryland with you or whatever, you may go to your house in flip-flops or whatever. Okay? Whatever. Sure, your decision, your client's decision, whatever. But at the end of the day, how are we representing ourselves overall in the industry? Do we appear to be professional when we are presenting ourselves? And a professional image is not just how you dress, it's what you say in your emails. Do you spell check your emails? Do you send text messages using the little smiley faces and hearts and all that stuff to your clients? I mean, if it's your son who's your client, that may work, but you have to be careful with that.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I'm not, okay. I was dealing with a young agent, and I was negotiating back and forth, and everything she sent me was an emoji. And I just sit there going, somebody break it down for me. I mean, everything was like a word emoji. Word emoji.
And that's very important. And I know Renee had asked me about covering negotiating between the 5 groups, age groups. And we may come back and do that later, but that's very important because different age groups have different tolerance for different things that they find to be acceptable versus not acceptable. So we have to understand that too. When we're working with someone, understand what their tolerance is for some of that. There are some agents that say, don't text me, everything should be an email or on the phone. There are some agents who, if you call them, say text me. I see it in listings where they say text. There's one agent I work with, and she's actually older than I am, but we only text the whole time. I never met her, and I never talked to her on the phone until, remember the windstorm? That blew all the shingles off the houses? Well, we went to the walkthrough. I had to call her about that. So I actually heard what her voice sounded like. I was like, oh, that's what you sound like, But she was perfectly okay with just texting back and forth. In the contract, everything went very well. It was not a hostile situation at all. Even the shingles, we got that worked out and it wasn't an issue. So, yes?
Can I just say something to that? I think it's important. As agents, we communicate with each other just like we do with our clients in what works best for us.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm very flexible, and lots of people who are younger, yeah, we'll use emojis, we'll do whatever, but if you don't feel comfortable with that, be like, hey, I need...
Comfortable.
Well,
I needed a translator.
But I mean, I think we need to communicate that and say, hey, I'm not used to this.
If you were talking with somebody, would you put, a happy face emoji? You wouldn't. You would just communicate in words. So
sometimes, but I have clients who send me like thumbs up and fist bumps and smiley faces.
I get the power.
I'm telling you.
Okay, so what he was saying, for those on live, and you had a conversation going about be adaptable to even communicate with other agents. If another agent is not comfortable with emotions, emoticons, and all that stuff, you may want to confirm that. But on the flip side, if they are, you can get the deal done, then it's okay too. Yes.
I would ask him to put emojis in the contract and see what they get.
This gentleman said, let's just start adding emojis to the contract. Let's see how far that gets us. Hey, I'm sure somewhere it's working. So know when to keep quiet. At first, hold something back. What's meant by that? I skipped number 3. We're almost out of time, but at first, hold something back is don't give you a whole hand. You know, if they're willing to pay $650, don't, just put out there $650 because you have nowhere to go to after for accounting. Know when to keep quiet. You need to know when to just be quiet. Like when I said, they said, well, they're not going to pay $650. And I said, well, how close to $650 can you get? That's all people hear. Hear silence. How close to $650 can you get? Your turn. Say something. That's kind of what I'm saying. You want to be quiet when it's time. Give them time to be quiet. What often happens from a psychological standpoint, and we know this to be true, is people can't deal with the silence. So they start filling in the blanks and rambling and bumbling. And sometimes either they're going to say, well, let me check, or they're just going to throw out some number, and you'll see kind of where they are. So know when to be quiet. Just, like we used to tell our kids, just be quiet, please. Understand how to negotiate against emotion versus logic. We can talk about that at another time if I come back. But emotion, remember we talked about we have to have emotional intelligence. We're going to have clients that lack emotional intelligence, and they're highly emotional, but we also have those clients who are very logical. And in their mind, if the numbers don't add up, then it's no deal for them. So you need to know how to negotiate against that too. Sometimes it can be harder because a number is a number, right? Emotion, you can sometimes get around and help them to see it a different way. But if they're saying, no, my bottom line is this, and the comps say this, and I'm not moving away from that, and if you can't negotiate that, then you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to understand how to deal with, how to first identify what type of person you're dealing with. An emotional person or a logical person. And then come from that particular angle. And sometimes you're not going to win. You'll just know, okay, if it doesn't meet this number, we're walking. And then it actually can help you to negotiate more strongly. Okay, real quick, and I think we talked about these, how to avoid a deadlock. Just say, I need an answer by Sunday. Okay, I need an answer by tonight at 5, or whatever. Break it into smaller parts. We talk about that. You may take a break. I'm skipping around. You all have these. Review the points you agree on. And then sometimes you just give a small concession. Hey, whatever, I'll pay the $500. Because I'm ready to move on, type thing. Okay, that's it. My broker agreed. Whatever. Another thing you can always do is defer to a third party. That works wonders. You can always say, I'm not sure if my broker is going to agree to it. I'm not sure if my seller's going to agree to it. I'm not sure if my team lead. I'm not sure if, you can always put it on someone else and give yourself some time to get back. Okay, that concludes our class on successful negotiations. Give yourselves a hand. Steve, do we have any online questions?
No, but your husband says hello.
My husband said hello? Good. Tell him I said hello. Well, I guess he can hear me, right? He said my client just messing it too. Okay, Matt, do you have any other comments?
No, just I'd like to thank Tara as well. Let's give her a round of applause. I'd like to thank all of you for your dedication and professionalism coming out today. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend and a very successful one. Enjoy negotiating.
Okay, thank you everyone. Have a great